Hi, I'm artist Heather Cline, and today I want to talk to you about how you take a story and translate it into a picture on a page. One of the ways that artists are inspired to make pictures is the idea of telling a story. And to do that, one of the easiest things to do is to find the elements of a story and how they translate into a visual work. Elements could include things like the setting, the time of day, the mood of the piece, the characters and objects that help to tell what's happening in the scene. The story that I'm going to use is based on something that happened to my sister and I. One afternoon, my sister and I were alone at home. I decided I was going to make a batch of French fries. So I set oil to boil on the stove and then went in the other room to talk to my sister. Suddenly we heard a noise from the kitchen and we both ran in and the whole pot of oil had caught on fire. So my sister started screaming and I grabbed a pot lid because I remembered not to put water on boiling oil or oil fire. I smothered the fire and then we tried to clear all the smoke and smell out of the house before my parents got home. This is a very visual story. So elements include a setting, which is a home. And it could have both the kitchen and the living room. And maybe even the outside. So there's the possibility of expanding the setting beyond just one simple place. Then it is afternoon. So there's going to be a certain amount of sunlight. So that affects the light. And there are things like the objects, which would include a stove, a pot of oil, a lid, and there are characters too. There's myself and my sister. And that's a pretty good list that we've got going there. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come up with some rough ideas of how I want to compose my picture. In other words, where I'm going to put what. And I'm thinking it might be interesting to maybe have, this is my page, and I can do a couple of these different versions. Maybe I'll have like the stove right in the center of the picture. And then maybe, and I'm just roughly putting things down. And maybe there will be a doorway that goes into, so I'm going to have to kind of figure out the space. So I don't have to have all the ideas of how the spaces look exactly right. It's an artwork, so I can be a little bit flexible. And then maybe this needs to be bigger. Maybe the stove needs to be quite large because it's important in the story. Sometimes the scale of something tells you how important it is to the story. So I can just kind of play with all this stuff that's going to be in my picture. And then maybe I run over to the sink, or to the fire, I should say, and I put it out. So you can have multiple things happening in a single picture frame that tell the story. So I can come up with the kind of little scenarios of what I want to do. And then if I want, I can also do some sort of drawings of how I think the characters should look. So, you know, maybe my sister has long hair. And you don't have to make things super detailed. Things like hands can just sort of show the shape of things. And if you're having trouble figuring out how something looks, get somebody near you to stand up and take the position that you want to have for your characters. You know, see what it looks like when they're running as opposed to standing still. So I'm going to kind of practice how I want things to look on my rough page before I start laying it out in my story. And if you don't want to try to make people look exactly like people, you can do stick figures. You can do kind of cartoony figures. you know? So don't be afraid to just experiment with your drawing. Once I've got my elements, then I'm going to take my rough draft, set it to the side, and start to actually lay out my drawing on the page. As long as there's some certain elements that are recognizable in a stove, like this front window, for example, and burners, you can get away with an awful lot that people will say, oh, that's a stove. So you don't always have to have everything exact, as long as you have the idea that gives people a sense of what something is. So sometimes very little information can tell people, oh, look, it's a stove. And now there's a pot on it. And see how I'm not worrying about line overlapping? That's because I can always fill it in with color or with other forms. So I'm going to put down my light pencil drawing first. And sometimes how you draw can suggest something too. So because I'm drawing the fire with this really jagged line, it looks more scary and aggressive. And then I can come in with my colors, and I can really use my colors to start making it look like fire. See how I can overlap my colors so it looks more like how flame flickers? So color, action of the line, things you recognize, those all are ways that artists help to share stories. So I hope you have a lot of fun taking your story and translating it into a scene.